I'm joined now by stone carver Adam Boyle. Adam, thank you so much for being here. When you first walked in, I said, I have seen so many photos of your work and I can't tell what the material is. What is it?
That piece is carved out of alabaster, which is a gypsum rock. So the same media that is used to make drywall.
Okay, we should go back to the beginning because I'm fascinated to know your whole story. You are a recent artist.
Correct.
So you say. So what led to trying your hand at carving alabaster?
I was actually at an art fair in Winona Lake, and I chance encounter with an artist that was there, saw his work, and I was struck by the mathematical forms that I saw, and I chatted him up for a little bit, and he offered to have me come up and take some classes, and I started commuting to Goshen on Wednesday nights to join 5 or 6 other people to learn the art of stone carving.
That's amazing. So how long have you been carving?
I'm coming up on my 3rd year.
Wow. I asked you before we started shooting what your civilian job is, and you're an engineer. So that makes a little more sense to me because this feels very mathematical to me.
It is. There are a lot of underlying geometrical principles there at work. So this is kind of me thumbing my nose at people who say they hate math. That's a practical application of math in the form of art.
I don't hate math, I'm just really bad at it. So
it's just a language.
Right, that I don't speak.
The more you speak it, the more fluent you become, and the easier it is.
Okay, so you fluently speak math, and you decided that you could apply that to this art. So let's walk through the process. Do you always use alabaster, by the way?
Not exclusively, but it's a fairly soft stone.
Okay.
So it's easier to work with.
So when you order raw alabaster, for lack of a better term, I'm sure there are better terms, I don't speak that language either. How does it come? Is it just a...
You can get it in a boulder. You can get it so it's pre-cut into slabs.
Okay.
Of varying thicknesses.
And then how do you prefer to get it?
It's easier to work with if it's already been processed a little bit and it's cut into slabs.
And so now you have a slab of alabaster. What happens next?
You pick a shape. So this piece here is a circle and a triangle. The form is a triangle.
Okay.
So here's the top of the triangle, the base, and then it's just rotated 180 degrees in a circle.
I'm not kidding. My mind is blown. Okay, so do you sketch first?
Sometimes, and then it's a lot of using a pencil on the slab of alabaster to draw out the shapes.
Now, what kind of tools are used?
A lot of hand rasps, files. I use metalworking tools sometimes, so carbide burrs and angle grinders.
Okay, so for this type of piece, I know you make much bigger pieces as well, but for something like this size, how long, start to finish, does that take?
That piece there is about 12 hours of work.
Wow. And do you spread it out over weeks, months?
It's nights and weekends. I try to spend at least one night a week out in my shop working, and then I get up early on the weekends and spend a few hours before the rest of the family rises.
What is the best part of the process for you?
The solitude of being in my workshop, just being in the moment and present and at work.
How do you come up with your designs?
Sometimes it's as simple as just picking a couple of geometric shapes and mashing them up and seeing what I can do. If you can look at an object in its raw form and see the shape inside of it, all you're doing is creating the negative space to bring it into being.
Has that always been a skill you possessed?
I think so.
Wow.
It comes from years of being in the skilled trades and making things out of metal. So you're taking a rod of steel and turning it into an orthopedic implant. Or you're taking a block and turning it into some kind of instrument for for the medical device community.
But I would imagine that in that application, you have the blueprint
Absolutely.
already. So is it liberating or terrifying to not have a plan?
That's where the crude sketches come in. That's sort of it's a real high level blueprint. So you're not bogged down in the weeds of all the minutia. It's like, oh, I've got a semblance of an idea. We'll just get to work and see what becomes. And sometimes the stone doesn't cooperate. I've had pieces, I've been hours into it, and a fracture line will cause the whole piece to fall apart. And then you just, it's like, well, that wasn't what was intended, so you try something else.
Can you salvage something like that, or do you have to just?
I've made some expensive piles of dust.
Wow.
Some are salvageable, some not so much.
Yeah. What is the hardest part?
Getting the art out into the world. Actually stepping out of my comfort zone and being in crowds of people at an art show or an art fair.
So what makes it worth it?
I figure that I like looking at it and others might, so the only way for that to happen is for me to stretch myself and get out there in the world.
What do you think you've learned about yourself through your art?
Mindfulness, being present and engaged. It's really easy to get distracted with phone calls and text and emails and social media, and turning all that off, just going out to the shop, turning on some music and doing the work. That's helped.
How gratifying is it to go out there, do the work, and get something so beautiful out of it?
It's deeply satisfying. I really enjoy it.
So what's next? Do you have new designs in mind? Do you have new media in mind, or are you happy in your lane?
I've got a few pieces of raw material that are different types of stone. I've got a few ideas that are new forms. So, yeah, I'm not afraid to fail. I'll just try new things.
That's so interesting that you say that, because I was just going to ask if you're ever afraid to make that first move, because you have the solid piece and once you start, there's no turning back. Is that intimidating?
Only if you let it. If you stop and think or overthink, then you get the analysis paralysis, and you're worried that whatever you're making isn't going to be perfect, and you just have to learn to let that go. And
maybe I need to learn to speak your language, because that sounds like such a great space to be in, that you can't overthink it.
It's therapeutic.
Yeah. How do you apply your skills as an engineer to continue to hone your work and grow?
It's usually in terms of process improvements. So figuring out how I can replicate a form faster, more economical. So if I'm starting to approach this from a business aspect, I can only invest so much time in a piece and then be able to resell it.
Sure.
If I've got 100 hours in a piece, an hour of my time is worth X dollars. So most people aren't walking around with that kind of spending money.
Right.
So
does thinking of it in terms of a business take some of the joy out of it?
it does. It's curbed me from actually starting an LLC and going through all the paperwork of filing taxes, and that turns it into work and not a hobby or
or therapy.
Yeah.
Do you do commission work, or are you only interested in sort of creating what you have in mind?
I've done a few commission pieces, so they've all been based on my forms. People have seen my work and were like, "That's great. Could you do it in this color stone?" And fortunately, alabaster comes in a wide variety of colors. So
How has your work grown and evolved over these last 3 years?
it started out with a lot of emulating my mentor's work and his skill set, and it's evolved into me going back and finding my roots as a machinist, and a lot of the polishing skills and the more practical application of tools.
How do you make time to do this? You mentioned that you are in grad school, and you have a family and a job. And how do you make time to create beautiful things?
Well, I have a beautiful and wonderful partner who supports me and helps me make the time. I'm a bit of an early riser and she's not, so that helps. But it's mostly just blocking off time and committing to. It's like, all right, I'm going to get up at 6:30 on Saturday and I'm going to spend 5 hours in the shop, and then after that, we'll start the day.
Yeah, and it's worth it.
Absolutely.
Adam, your work is beautiful. Your mind absolutely fascinates me because boy, all those languages you speak are really, really something. And the fact that they result in such beauty is really cool. So thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
Been my privilege.
Arts in Focus on PBS Fort Wayne is funded in part by the Our Foundation and the Community Foundation of Greater Fort Wayne.